Welcome to Bad Law, Worst Facts. I'm your host, Michael Tacklet. Today I have Andrew Mckinnon on, and we're going to talk about quite a few things. Andrew has a defense background. He went plaintiff's side. He's working his cases. And what's interesting, he's able to kind of keep a smaller-ish firm in a very fine-tuned and like ready to go manner. And I asked him how he did it. He's like, look, there's standards and procedures you have to implement. There's certain things you have to do, and you have to kind of block this out. I said, hey, hold on. Get on my podcast. Let's talk about it there because it seems like something we really need to talk about. Andrew, how you doing today?
What's going on, man? Good to see you.
You too, man. You bounce around a lot, man. I see you everywhere on the scene, huh?
I try to be, I try to boots on the ground, shake hands, kiss babies, try to get out there as much as I can.
Yeah, you've come to my office quite a few times, and for some reason I'm just never there, or I guess in a depot, but I think usually it's never there.
I've harassed your staff enough. So
I don't know, man. You're a good looking dude. And my staff is like, oh, yeah, he can come by anytime. I'm like, all right, dude. That's what I text you. Stay away. No, I'm kidding. So tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So, I grew up in South Florida. My mom's a Cuban immigrant. So, we call it Cuba Light down in Miami. My dad moved us around, had a bunch of different jobs growing up in oil and gas. So grew up in South Florida and then spent some time in Connecticut and then North Carolina, where I spent up until, maybe Houston. That was the longest I've been in one location in my whole life. So it was about 10 years. Went to undergrad at Appalachian State. So for my Aggies out there, apologize about last year.
I think you told me that off air. I was like, wait, where? I was like, the place we lost to last season? Like, fuck you guys. And you got all apologetic. And I was like, oh man, I feel bad.
That's what I was saying. I'm walking around Northgate. That was my first College Station experience, first off. So, I had this, this mind, College Station was a bunch of like cowboys, bunch of farmers, whatever. I actually really enjoyed y'all's campus. I know you guys dumped a bunch of money in it in the last couple of years. And I was walking around Northgate, just apologizing to people. Saying, hey, man, I'm so sorry we won. I mean, the biggest jerks around Northgate were App State guys being like, we knew we were going to win. I'm like, shut up.
Well, I mean, hey, look, they talked a lot of A&M talked a lot of mess. So I think it was well-deserved for that season. And then this season, I'm apologizing to UT grad. So that's really fun. And then so from there, you went to South Texas, right?
Yep. Went to South Texas. I was teaching tennis. So I played tennis in undergrad.
Really?
So I played tennis at Appalachian State. And then my parents moved to the Woodlands, which is North Houston, for those who don't know. And kind of like most, didn't know what I was going to do after college. Met a couple guys that were lawyers from South Texas. They're in oil and gas. And they kind of said, hey, what are you doing with your life afterwards? And I go, I ain't got a clue. And they kind of planted the law school kind of seed in the head, and I, once I started talking to them and looking about what they do, and now they were in oil and gas, so it was kind of a different world than I wanted to be in. But, you meet one lawyer, you meet a bunch of lawyers, and, they told me, hey, South Texas, we'd love to have you. And that's what got me down here.
So what made you want to do defense work at the beginning of all this, besides student loans?
Yeah. I just watched Star Wars and something about the dark side just needed to go over. Yeah, no. So it's actually, I started with kind of like a billboard firm in a firm when I got out of school. Yeah. So I was there for just under a year, but I was stuck in the pre-litigation department. So, the good thing about that firm is I really learned plaintiff pre-litigation. In a year, I really felt comfortable where I felt like I could almost run my own law firm. I mean, that firm did a really good job kind of implementing and training pre-litigation, but I wanted to get in the courtroom more, and I just wasn't going to get that experience, for good reason, right? I mean, I don't think any firm would get a guy or gal coming right out of school and say, hey, here's, 50 litigation files, go commit malpractice, right? So it's, essentially he was
surprised.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Which, and the defense will get to that. The defense has no problem doing that. But, again, I just wasn't getting the litigation experience that I wanted to get. And I was living with a roommate of mine who worked staff counsel for Liberty Mutual over at Kilpatrick and Dees is what it's called under John Kilpatrick. Yeah. So most guys know. Oh, he's great. Yeah. I mean, I really lucked out when it comes to, kind of a mentor. So I was living with a buddy of mine, John Caselli, whose dad is Judge Caselli for, those who may know him. And he goes, hey man, look, I'm taking 3 depositions a week. I'm in mediation. I'm trying cases. Come on over to the defense. And I said, all right, cool. Let's do it. Yeah. So that's what got me over to starting my career in Kilpatrick and Dees and staff counsel with Liberty Mutual.
So tell me, with your experience on the defense side, and we've had a few attorneys that either former defense or currently still on the defense side. What are some things how do you look at it when you get, plaintiff files lawsuit, gets your client served? How are you looking at the case?
Yeah. And that's something, so after John Kilpatrick. I went over to Donato Minks Brown Pool or Donato
Oh yeah.
Brown Molman. So, went to outside counsel,
Yeah.
and the things that were consistent with those two firms. And again, I can only speak to those two firms.
Sure.
Is once a lawsuit was filed, I had 30 days to write an initial report. And my report was, well, for one, it's good billing. It's great billing. So I would spend hours on these things, and I would end up knowing the file better than some of these plaintiffs that were filing their law firm or filing the lawsuits.
Right.
Because I went, what are the facts? What are the damages? What are the experts I think we're going to need? What is the price? How much I think we're going to have to pay in litigation? So here are all the experts. Here's how much I think we're going to have to pay. And then I would have to give an estimated verdict of like, hey, look, if we go to trial, there's 20% chance it'll be between X and Y. Here's a 50% chance I think we get this. And we had to get pretty nitty gritty, especially with outside counsel. But the things that we really cared about, and it was this kind of, there was a paragraph or a section in that report, was my background information on the plaintiff firm. And it ended up really becoming, sort of the theme that the only thing I really cared about, and the only thing the adjuster cared about, was what's on the letterhead, what firm's on the letterhead, and when's my due date for any sort of like demand letter coming in the door. Because there was, it was kind of unspoken that if you were a firm on the letterhead that was known to not try cases, to settle early, settle often, then you were put in this category of, hey, look, we can kind of run this case a little bit cheap. We'll do some depositions, maybe mediation. They're going to take it at mediation. On the flip side, if there was a firm, some of the heavy hitters, Abraham Watkins, Sorrells, those guys. We had a case with Hunter Kraft up in Dallas. Those guys, they go, hey, I want 15 million or we'll see you at court. And they mean it. You know what I mean? So we learned quickly as a defense lawyer, especially a new one, who were the guys going to court and who weren't.
What do you think? How do you look? I mean, you named some people who have been around for a while, right? So how does someone, and kind of like you and I's situation, right? Like where we're coming up on a few years and all that. How do we set aside or come apart from that? And we now become one of those people that become on the letter is just trying a bunch of cases.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. And I can, call myself out too. I've had my firm for 2 years and I haven't tried none of my cases have gone to trial yet. So full disclosure, I'm in that, I would consider my firm probably right now in the insurance world.
Yeah.
In that prior category, and it's only until I start trying cases, to where the adjusters and those guys will say, hey, look, Andrews, when he says he wants, whatever's on his demand letter, if we don't meet it, then he's going to go try the case.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, it's something that we're going to implement, especially next year, is I'm going to be, kind of looking at my files and saying, okay, what are the cases I'm going to go try this year? Obviously with the consent of the client, make sure the client's always put first, right? That's without being said, but it says, hey, look, these are 3 cases I think are strong, and I don't think we're going to get a fair shake at it at mediation. We're going to obviously talk to the client, but these are the cases I'm going to try this year.
To be fair, I think you are not trying so many cases because I think you worked them up pretty well where they'll resolve it for good money without requiring a trial. I mean, I give you credit. One of the first times I met you, you came to my office and we were talking. I was talking to you about this case and you said, oh man, it's a premises case. It's in a parking lot. Was it on the actual parking lot strip, like the paint? And I was like, yeah, I think so. He's like, okay, here's the expert. He's going to say that this area is actually non-slip. This gets you past the MSJ. And I was like, oh shit, that's a great fucking idea. And I did that and it resolved. So thank you.
Good.
Yeah. I don't think I ended up calling the expert, getting anything done. They didn't even file the MSJ. We just resolved it. But it was like, it made me feel a lot better going into negotiations that I'm not worried about the MSJ. I'm not worried about anything. So it worked out. So I appreciate that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was good. So, the idea is that we have to try as many cases. What happens if you're losing them? I mean, like you become the guy who's going to be losing cases. That's because they're not going to try a case they think they're going to lose. Well, barring a specific insurance company I could think of, they're not going to.
They don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point, because you don't want to be known as the guy who's just the wild card who's going to go in. He's going to get his butt kicked left, right, and center.
Yeah.
There is an element of, hey, you need to be known to win. Right. But I think, until you're willing to go into the courtroom and put on the gloves, you don't even know what kind of trial lawyer you are. You don't know how to win. So I think, it's going to take getting some early hits.
Yeah.
And then, but it's, I think just knowing, from the defense side that, hey, this guy's willing to go in and try it. It's going to
really
run up expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If anything else, he's going to be a pain in the butt. He's going to drive up expenses. Are we, on a small car case, are we going to end up spending $15,000, $20,000 on expert when we could probably settle the case for 15 or 20,000 and get it done today. Right. So I think, even if it's just, hey, we're willing to take it, the defense knows it.
Right. That makes sense. Is there anything else that you think of on the defense side that you think is important people know that you think people miss on?
And this is more anecdotal, that I would say, but we have reporting requirements on the defense.
Yeah.
And which again, this is anecdotal, but we got 30-day report requirements, or like after a deposition, I got 30 days to bring in a report, right? When big events happen, I have a reporting requirement to get it to the adjuster to say, hey, this is what's going on in the case. The adjusters at any given time probably have between 100 and 500 files, especially if you're a car wreck, if you're running a car wreck docket. And so the chances of the adjuster knowing who you are, your case, is very small because he or she's got so many files. So I always say, when I call it riding the wave. So when I know we do a deposition and I know that defense lawyer is going to writing a report after a deposition, I make sure to send in my Stowers demand or demand, whatever, within that 30-day window, because what I would like to see is, hey, that adjuster is going to be looking at this file within the next 30 days when this report comes in. Right. I would love to have that report, the evaluation from the defense lawyer, how did the opponent do, like the client. They can attach my Stowers demand. Usually I send us, if it's a Stowers case, and have it say, hey, look, plaintiff presented really well. This is the damages. Here are some of the non-economic damages that we learned from the file. Right. And then, oh, hey, by the way, here's a Stowers demand, for 30 days or 2 weeks, whatever it is for you. Yeah. Here's my evaluation. That's the best way for the adjuster to, one, they're going to look at your file now and, oh, hey, we got a deadline. So I've got to evaluate the file and I got to make a decision on the file.
That's a good thing. Everybody talks about reports. I don't think I've ever asked a guest, like, what exactly, I've seen my reports. Like, I've seen reports on cases that I've been involved in because they've accidentally sent them to me.
Yeah.
And so what are kind of like key figures that you think of whenever you're writing a report after a deposition?
Yeah, it's mainly just what did we learn? We've got all the medical records, right? So I know what the medical records say. I know what the police report says. I got a general sense of the facts. So it was, from a liability point of view, did we learn anything about liability that we didn't know before? And sometimes you do. Sometimes you're like, oh, hey, by the way, the plaintiff says that the defendant came out and beer bottles came out. That wasn't in any of the police report.
That's not great.
Right. Yeah. Or vice versa. Sometimes the plaintiff is like my light wasn't green. It was absolutely red. And you go, well, cool. That's something we didn't know.
Well, you should talk to your attorney.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, let's take a break. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah. The amount of times I, go, oh, okay, let's stop. Yeah.
Gotta take a break. The client needs to pee. I need to pee. Like everybody I just
flipped the table. I'll be honest. I just flipped the table and I get out of there. Yeah.
I've had that happen. I've had a defense, like, again, I'm not going to name the insurance company, but I've had that where I've got video footage, but it's a little grainy and it's a red light throwing match and the defendant just comes out. It's just like, yeah, man, no, I definitely ran this. I ran one of them one time. I remember this a few years ago, quoted, I ran the shit out of that light. I was like, oh, fuck. And they had been denying it the whole time. No, none of that happened. He had the green light. My client's a liar. That couldn't sell quick enough.
Something that John Kilpatrick told me, and I love this quote, and he goes, no one is more surprised than my client when asked a question that we rehearsed 100 times during prep. Because I kept going in and I'm like, my client, the defendant, is saying all this wild stuff that, we didn't bring up during the prep. And he goes, welcome to law.
That sounds about
now
right.
I'm kind of used to it. Yeah. It's, so going back to the report is, it's essentially what did we learn? So you got the facts, obviously the medical, there may not be anything there, but it's really the human damages, the non-economic and the human damages that, Nick Rowley really preaches that, I'm a big fan of his. And the medical records will have some documentation about non-economics if they're talking to their doctor about it, but it's really, the deposition is really a good chance for the plaintiff to say, hey, look, I know what the medical record says. Let me tell you what's been going on in my life for the last year, 2 years, whatever it is. That is something that is important to prep your clients on the plaintiff side, but it's also going to be in the report because that is new information that the adjuster is going to have to take into consideration because, again, it's, when we go down to the courthouse, you see these big verdicts, but the medical bills may not be that high, but it's the human damages, the human losses that jurors are really starting to, key in on.
Yeah, I think, and we've talked about it before on a podcast, but post-injury witnesses, right? Fact witnesses, the more far removed from the family, the better, that can really testify as to what this person is going through and has gone through and continues to go through is huge. I mean, that's how you get there. But that's good to know that in reports, because I think that's something a lot of people miss, right? And you can ask your client. Oh, one thing I have been like, for example, like my prep and stuff is like, I ask the client, like, what have you noticed that's different? Nothing. What do you mean nothing? Right. And so, or it'll be the complete opposite. Like, I can't do anything. Well, that's not going to work either, right? And so you kind of want to, I think the idea is that a good client would probably say something along the lines of, it's not that I can't do anything, it's that I have issues doing it because X, Y, and Z. If it's a soft tissue, if it's a catastrophic, obviously there's ways to deal with that. And in fact, if it is a catastrophic case, there are experts who will help go through that. And I think that's a way better way. Don't go and prep the client yourself. Bad idea. I mean, if it's worth the money, do it, right?
Yeah, and I tell so when I get a new client in the door, it doesn't matter if it's a referral from another law firm, which I do a lot of, or an organic case. One of the things I tell them is I get them a diary, and I say, I want you to start journaling from the moment you wake up to the moment your head hits that pillow. I want you to jot how your day went. Because, you'll see when you file the suit, a year, 18 months, a lot of time's gone by, and it's going to be hard for them to remember, hey, what was my life like for those first couple of weeks when I got hit? And like, now I can't turn my neck. I can't pick up my kids, or I wake up and I got a crick in my neck, and I say, get as detailed as you can. We're not, if it hurts to use the restroom, I want you to tell me about that. And it's again, kind of your point. It's not that you can't do things anymore, but you don't do things anymore. You don't do things without pain, or you do things, but now you're doing it with pain. So it's not like I don't drive, I don't sit down, I don't go to work, but now I'm sitting down and work, or I'm on a podcast like this, and now my back hurts.
Right.
Those are the things that, I want my client to, really tell their story. Is what I tell them is like, look, the defense lawyer, 90% of them and 99% of them, they're just like you and me. They're just here doing their job. They got a checklist. They got questions they got to ask. Tell them your story. Tell them what's been going on, because that's stuff that the adjusters doesn't know until that point.
It's the likability is also super helpful. I think you're going to have to put that down in the report. I mean, if you're a likable individual, it's hard for a jury not to vote for you. So, and that goes both ways. So if the defendant is likable, I'm like, fuck, right? Like, honestly, like, oh man. And so,
you don't sue old ladies. And
I mean, I do. I'm not saying I want to try the case against them. I mean, it's not as much fun. You can't beat up on an old lady. It's not fun. But that's going to be the quote of the day, huh?
Don't sue old ladies.
Oh no, beating up on old ladies is not fun.
Andrew's top 5 methods to beat up elderly.
If I ever run for judge, that's what's going to be on there. But it's just tougher. It's tougher when the person's likable, and you've got to deal with that. It's tougher on both sides. So I think that's helpful as well. Let's kind of get into, because you talked about your intake and having a diary. Talk to me about, so you call them SOPs, and that's Standards of Operating Procedures. Is that what it stands for?
Right, Standard Operating Procedures.
Okay, tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's you can go to a lot, for lawyers, we're very good lawyers, good in the courtroom, terrible businessmen. You hear that all the time.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, if, just full transparency, I have an operations mindset, kind of a CEO mindset. My dad, I think I just got that from my dad, I think I'm relatively creative. I think I've got some skills that I think can make me dangerous in the courtroom, but just my mind runs in like how do we systematize? How do we run operations? That's just something I don't know why, this is something I love. And so something that we've implemented early on, really from day one from the firm is, especially if you're running a car wreck docket, is, what are the things we need to do? How do we break up a lawsuit, or a file into distinguished stages, and what are the things that need to get done in each one? And then how do I replicate it? How do I scale on this? And so, my early days when I didn't have a lot of cases, I had a lot of time, was obviously marketing, going out and meeting as many people as I could.
Yeah.
But also documenting my processes. And I've got I think I've got a pretty good way of how I did it, that I've stolen bits and pieces from the best firms and business, folks around, to kind of create a process that I'm at least pretty proud of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tell me a little bit about it. I mean, when something walks into your door, what are you thinking?
So like a new file or a new case?
Yeah. A new case.
Yeah. So, it's this intake, we've got our intake standard operating procedures, which is obviously, you're doing your intake, but then how do we set up the file? How do we actually, the administrative stuff, and who's going to be handling that, that process. So something, kind of on a big picture is, how I was figuring out my standard operating procedure is, I think it took me about 2 weeks, and I wrote down every single task that I did for those 2 weeks, and it was as nitty-gritty as licking an envelope for a letter, calling the adjuster to set up a new claim, sending out the letter of representation, sending a birthday text to a client. If it was their birthday, I would manually be, hey, happy birthday, Ms. Johnson. I hope, your day's going well.
Yeah.
And I had, by the end of that week or two, I probably had anywhere between 100 to 200 individual tasks that, I did.
Yeah.
And so I created, that list, and then I created a couple columns. So the next column after every list, I'd have my, tasks. I would have delegate, automate, eliminate, or Andrew. And the point of that is on these 200 tasks, what can I delegate to an associate, paralegal assistant, whatever?
Right.
What can I automate through technology? For example, the birthday text, we use Hona that does automated birthday texts that are great.
Yeah.
What can I just eliminate? What is a task if this is, just something that doesn't need to be done at all? Or what tasks need to stay with me, those high level tasks? And so when it comes to intake, it was everything from calling the client, setting up the documents that they need to sign, the HIPAA authorizations, obviously the contract, the evidence, the photos, you name it. I list out everything like that. And I go, okay, I like to be on board with intake personally, because, I like to be the first person that a new client talks to.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I'm on the firm, but I've got my assistant now that's next to me or virtually, who's doing all the administrative tasks as I'm talking to the client, like setting up the, our system in Smart Advocate that we use for case management. She's doing that automatically, getting the files together, sending out the HIPAA authorizations as I'm on the phone with the new client. Says, hey, my assistant's sending you HIPAA, here you go, that kind of thing.
Right.
So it was something that it took me, and honestly, it's a live document, this SOP. So it's something that I'm still working on.
So if someone wants to do it, you would have them for 2 weeks, just write down every single thing they do at their law firm, and then figure out essentially what they have to delegate and what they have to, because I'll tell you, I have an issue in that I think a lot of lawyers have this issue. It's like, if you don't do it, it's not going to be done.
Yeah.
And so in some ways I've let go of some things at the firm, but I still stress out about it. I mean, I think up until last week, I was ordering Costco for stuff for the staff. I don't think I should be the one doing that, right? But I'm doing it. And I don't know why. I just feel like if I don't do it, I'm not going to get the right thing or the right stuff. But it will go as far as discovery. I'm not so involved in discovery anymore when it comes to paper discovery. I'm not so involved in those things. But early on, I couldn't let it go, right? I was so worried about one missed thing, one misstep. It's really frustrating. Still very involved with any motion practice, try to get myself away from that a little bit more, but we'll see. And so something like that, I think it'd be very helpful for me to write down, tasks that I do every day for two weeks, and then to figure out how many of these can I automate,
Yeah. And I've got more business books, Mike Morse, Fireproof.
Yeah.
One of the best books that I've ever read. John Morgan, You Can't Teach Hungry, Can't Teach, his second book, I can't remember what it's called. And then John Fisher from New York, he does medical malpractice in New York, I believe. He's got a book called Lawyer on a System or something like that.
Okay.
He actually lays out his entire, actually I have it here. There we go. The Power of a System. So this book here is his standard operating procedure that he memorialized that you can easily rip off.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he teaches here and that Mike Morse has in his book is before you even do the listing of the tasks, and this is kind of a self-reflective exercise you can do, is he's got 4 quadrants, and it's again all the tasks that he has in a given week. And one quadrant is what's going to make money, tasks that make money that I don't like to do.
Sure.
Like maybe writing a demand letter. Some folks don't like writing demand letters, but that is a income producing task as opposed to a task that is non-income producing, like setting up a Dropbox file for the client, right? And then you have tasks that do make money that you want to do. So for trial lawyers like us, I love strategizing about cases. I love taking depositions, going to court, right? Those are income producing tasks that I love. And then in tasks that don't bring any income, but I do like to do, like calling the clients on their birthday. I like, I just like getting to know my clients, right?
Yeah.
It's not making any money, but it's a task that, I like to do just to, get involved with my client's life and things like that. And so one of the things that they teach is, take a weekend to figure out all the tasks that you do and what really lights you up, and then what doesn't, and then what tasks can you delegate and automate, and then move over to that kind of that list format that I do. And then it's again that trust. I mean, that's a big one. Kind of to your point is, I always kind of said, 80% of done is better than me doing it on certain tasks.
That's fair.
Like if a letter of representation's got maybe the wrong birthday or something, it's something that they can easily. Yeah. It's just but it's I think letting go was, and it's still I have trouble with it too. I do way more tasks that I should delegate.
Yeah.
And even tasks that I've delegated that I've specifically delegated, and I do their task anyway. And I've had my assistant like, hey, stay in your lane. This is for me.
You better stay out of my lane. Like, okay,
yeah.
Bad.
He's like, you're literally paying me to do this task while you're doing it. And I was like, hey, you're right.
Yeah. No, I have the kind of the same issue. And I think luckily my staff is very territorial about their duties. So they're like, hey, no. I'm like, okay. And some of them do it better than I do, to be honest with you. It's just a personal thing.
Yeah. And in our SOP, so every stage, every, injury phase has a couple different things. And I think this actually might be able to help sort of, with your delegation process. We have, what is the stage? So what are we doing? So let's just say it's filing a lawsuit. We've got, and I explain the process of what are we doing? We're filing a lawsuit. And then the stage goal, like why are we filing the lawsuit? How does it fit into the bigger picture and of an injury case? And then I have how we measure success. And those are our KPIs. So in our firm, if a file comes in through like a referral, I want to make sure we file that lawsuit within 14 days. And if not, I want to know why. So like, maybe some affidavits didn't come in. Maybe we're still collecting some evidence.
Right.
But we have our KPIs and how we measure success when we go over and we do our file review. And I see a case has been stuck in a stage for longer than, 14 days in that example. It's a point of conversation to say, hey, is it because we just didn't file the lawsuit, or are we getting records, or what's going on? And it's a good way for my team to stay accountable, because they know, for example, when medical records come in the pre-litigation phase, they got 30 days to create and send out a demand, or send it to me to review. Cause I do a lot. I'm pretty involved in the demands when it comes to like the human damages. I like to write that in. But as far as like the, the medical chronologies, and some of the boilerplate stuff.
Yeah.
I want that flipped over to me within 30 days so I can finalize it, send it back to them, and it's out the door within 30 days. And if that's not being done, I want to know why.
Right.
So I think, when it comes to, doing things, one is trust, obviously, right? You got to train your people well.
And you have good
lots
people.
of meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just getting involved, just once a week, just, hey, what's going on? Is anything giving you problems? What's going well? What are you having issues with? How can I help? I think having those conversations, and they'll be upfront with it. I mean, they'll say, hey, yeah, like I'm not getting like we had an issue with like reviewing medical records and just learning the medicine. It's like, hey, when I'm doing this, like I don't really know what is a radio frequency ablation. I'm not really sure what that is. So I bought a book from Bob Simon, Trying Disc Injury Cases.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've had him on the podcast, by the way.
Love it.
Yeah,
no, have you?
Yeah.
It's a great book.
$13 million verdict for some soft tissue in this case. So
yeah,
I was like, I want to hear about that one.
How'd you do that?
Yeah, I need to, can you just, I need to channel that, right? So
yeah,
his book is really, really good. So that's great.
It's great. And the first half of it is all about the medicine.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the second half is like, how to deal with, cross-examination, stuff like that. But I got that book and I gave it to my case manager with, saying, hey, we're going to learn this together. And we reading it. Actually, we're still going through it together. Sure. And it's like a book club. We're like, hey, we're learning it. That kind of thing.
What's your book club? Oh, I'm learning, whatever fantasy book. Oh, mine is soft disc injuries and, how to deal with them in litigation. Okay.
Mine is Pain and Death, 2025.
That's funny. Okay. And so you kind of go through that and you have kind of a setup, let me ask, is there ways that you're finding in litigation that's helping you, get the attention of the defense counsel in any way?
I really like, when I'm in depositions, and actually I stole this from a guy who's been on your podcast, Teddy, what's his last name? Festera?
Oh, Festarica? Yeah.
Festarica, yeah. So there are certain plaintiffs that I ran into when I was on the defense that just did things differently where it comes to depositions, how they formulated their questions. I feel that those cases, when I look back on my defense file, because I probably handled at any given time, I'd had between 100, 120 files. And then once I got in the outside counsel, obviously bigger cases, but the notable cases were guys who were doing things differently. And it doesn't have to be some, revolutionary process, but I like showing PowerPoint presentations during my depositions. I like doing slides. I like getting involved with using demonstrative evidence that I got from Mark Lanier. went to his trial academy, and
it's great. It's very
one
good.
of the best things. Yeah, I recommend everyone go at least every other year, just because he's up to date on this human psychology, how he does his depositions, but actually got his Elmo, got his entire setup that he uses for depositions. And this is why I got the microphone that I'm using here is, I worry about audio, worry about demonstrative evidence and slides. And, and I see the look sometimes on defense lawyers' face, and they're like, the hell's this guy doing?
Like, why are we doing this? What are you doing?
And it's an interactive thing that I used, that I go through with the defense. And so some of it's like, are you taking full responsibility for the car accident? If they say, yeah, it's one thing to say it like we're talking here, but I actually have a PowerPoint slide that says, I, such and such am taking full responsibility for the collision that occurred on such and such date. And I have a box, agree, disagree, I don't know. And I move the X to I agree. Yeah. And it's just, I think in today's world where we're in a TikTok, Instagram, so, that's just the doom scrolling.
Yeah.
That, and again, this is just my opinion, just the jury's attention spans are now so short that unless you're kind of getting interactive with the process, you may lose them more quickly maybe than we did maybe before I was like a lawyer, maybe back in the early days. But I think doing things differently does kind of key in, kind of has a little star next to your file on the defense. And again, that's just me, when I was looking back.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do a lot of that as well too, with the PowerPoint presentations. And I think it makes a difference. More often than not, they're going to write it up that this guy's prepared. And so that's very important, right? If they feel like, oh crap, I don't know what's in store for trial at this one, I want to try and resolve it, right?
He's prepared. He's a little crazy. He's showing my guy PowerPoint presentation. I don't know what he's doing. He's off his rocker.
He's prepared, a little crazy. He's typing it up. He is foaming at the mouth. Let's resolve this one. No, I'm kidding. I mean, honestly, you're right. I think that does make a difference. But, from going from a young attorney to kind of your own business owner, like what are some things that you're thinking, man, as a young attorney, I wish I would have done a little differently? And what do you think are some things that you've done that you're happy about?
I can tell you what I not regret, but one thing I would have done differently is I went to South Texas College of Law, one of the best mock trial programs we have in the country, and I didn't take advantage of that. Yeah. When I was in law school, I wasn't sure what kind of lawyer I wanted to be, if I wanted to be in the courtroom, if I wanted to be a transaction. I was kind of figuring it out as I was in law school.
Most of us did not, right? And the ones that do were kind of lying, right? So
I know, there's a couple people, they're like, I want to be a criminal defense lawyer, and I know it from day one. And I'm like, that's awesome. This is probably not something I should admit on the on a podcast in public, but when I went into law school, I didn't really understand the concept of the bar exam. I knew going into law school that there was probably some sort of exam to be a lawyer, but I did not know that it was called the bar exam. And one of the first days, they call them bar classes, like contracts, right?
Sure.
It's a test or a subject that'll be on the bar exam. I was like, what's the bar exam? And I kind of look over and the guy's like, oh no, this guy's failing out. Yeah. Because I didn't come from, I'm the first lawyer in my family. No one's, I had no lawyers, no family members that were lawyers. They were, so I was just kind of figuring it out.
What's the bar exam? Oh man, you need
oh shit.
You sure you're the right school? And MBA programs down the. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. So it's one thing, I think I wish I would have going into law school, maybe taken some time to reflect about, hey, I'm going to a professional school. What do I want to do with this? Right. Yeah. Instead of just showing up and kind of, I did pretty well. I mean, I graduated top 25, maybe, so, not bottom, but obviously that doesn't, doesn't really mean much.
That matters. But, I mean, it's
just, exactly.
It's one of those things. And it's like what I tell people, it's like, I speak at the UP Law Society because I'm a law alum, and I tell them like it's okay to not know. Like most of us didn't, and honestly, it doesn't matter, right? Because at one point you may be. I got really lucky. I kind of knew I wanted to do personal injury, and I just happened to work at like an insurance subrogation. I needed money. I worked at an insurance. Well, first I worked at a labor wages like employment firm for one summer, and I had split with Judge Sandel because I worked at his court, and then I was just looking for a job, and I just applied to Arnold Mckinnon, and they took me. So I worked there for like I think like a year and a half or something like that. And I was like, I fucking love this. This is great. You're seeing the things being done at like such a huge level. what I didn't realize is that there's also like regular car wrecks that it's really actually difficult to like get 3 or 4 experts on. So you got to be careful. So, but seeing that, it was cool. And I was like, that's what I know. I want to do this. But most of my friends did not know. They were like, whoever hires me and will pay for me so I can pay for my student loans sounds great to me.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, again, you got to see how it operates at the highest level over at A&I. I mean, those guys, I mean,
they know what they're doing for sure.
They're killers. Yeah. Right. And I think it's, what I would recommend for like law students. Yeah. I think that's a great point. Like, you don't have to figure it out. Don't put pressure on yourself to try to figure it out. There's already too much pressure in law school as it is, right? You don't need that on top. But I think I wish I would have taken some time to reflect, to kind of be like, hey, just what interests me, not what kind of lawyer I want to be, just like, what do I do? And I talk way too much. I got a big mouth. I love being in front of people. Yeah. I just, although I kind of went into law school thinking maybe I'd be kind of locked away in a room cranking out contracts or something, whatever that was, if I would have taken a minute to maybe self-reflect, I love doing like what we're doing here. That complements itself to trial work, or at least some sort of a variation trial work. So I wish I would have done mock trial, because again, we got a great program there, and I didn't.
Celtics is a fantastic program.
Exactly. Yeah. And I didn't take advantage of that. I wish I would have done that. And I think I did a pretty good job marketing, but I think, law school is really a time, obviously you want to do well, you want to get the grades, that, is without being said, but as well as I do, the law community is big as it seems. It's actually a pretty close-knit community. Is get involved in the school, get involved with your community, and get to know your colleagues. I was new in Houston, so I moved here in 2013, and I didn't know a single person. And I think I did a pretty good job, but I think, just shaking as many hands as you can, dinners, coffees, calling lawyers, call me, I'll give everyone my cell phone at the end of this, but shoot me a call, if you want coffee, and just tell me, hey, this is where I'm at, happy to help. But I think doing that will pay dividends after school.
Yeah, I know. It's huge. One of the biggest cases I ever got early in my career was from a friend of mine. She knew another attorney, and he just happened to ask for my number because he knew I was a PIA attorney. And there was like a connection there. And he's like, yeah, I've seen you around in the U of H Law School, because I was involved in moot court. I was on the journal and all that. So, and I was like, yeah, okay. And I just, me and him had become very good friends. And so we ended up resolving that case for like a confidential 7-figure amount. And, he's still a good friend of mine, and that kind of worked out. Right. And then a lot of other cases I've gotten are from U of H alum. I also worked for Mo Aziz right out of law school at Abraham Watkins. And
you got a resume?
Yeah. So, it was working for him was really interesting. That's probably my biggest regret, is not working for him longer. Because he gets after it. So
I've heard,
yeah, he gets after it. So, he kind of taught me how to have that kind of work ethic, and I've kind of, implemented to the best of my abilities.
Yeah.
So, and kind of seeing that, but he got me involved with a lot of attorneys as well too. And I got to see, because he does all types of cases, man. I mean, people think he just does like big, product liability HMS, but he does all types. And seeing how he does everything was kind of crazy to me. And it made me realize early on that honestly, like, if you know the rules of evidence and you could try a case, the sky's the limit, right? I mean, it really is. Yeah. So
and that's something, give you credit is, obviously I follow you on social media, we're buddies, but I think you do a really good job of getting out in the community, and you're involved with like, the Arab social run club, your gym, I think law school. That's something, as a business owner myself, that I haven't done a good enough job, that I'd like to get more involved into my community, just like you have. So I think you've been doing really well with that.
Appreciate that, man. I'm gonna tell you, man, it's a lot of work. Like doing it's like some people who right out of law school have contacted me. They're like, oh, I want to go off on my own. I'm like, don't do that. Like I could roll out of bed and do a deposition. I wouldn't say I could roll out of bed and just try a case. I feel like I'm gonna know what I need to do and put an opening and close together pretty quickly and all that. But learn those things where you can do that first, because running the business, like, I love that you came on here and talked about, SOPs, because that's something I'm still working on at my law firm. Like, I'm still trying to finalize, figure out, work on, and I don't think it's ever something you resolve, but they, kind of something you have to deal with, right? But more
I would always, learn on someone else's dime too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lee, the last thing you want to do is do something that's like, case dispositive with your own name on the board.
Yeah, it's not fun.
I mean, yes. I mean, I got that fear now and I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
It's always something in the back of your head, right? You're like, oh no.
Yeah.
But, so you got that. Then you've got like this, figure out how your firm needs to be run. Then you need to fill the right personnel for the firm. Then you've got to also get the clients in so that it runs through the firm. And then on top of that, you've got to figure out all the bankroll for everything, plus like the property that you want to stay at, plus how you want to come off, plus the marketing. I mean, I can keep going in this loop, right? All of that to say, just learn on someone else's dime, get as many reps as possible before you decide to do your own law firm, right? I mean, at least that's my opinion.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think, if you got a long career ahead of you, you know, the folks that are coming out, right? Hopefully, you find something that you like to do if you're in the injury space and you got a lot of time. Take a few years, a couple years. And then actually one thing that I actually did do well, so kind of answer your previous question of what things did I do not well, something I did well and is when I was working for the defense, I kind of, I got a multi-billion-dollar backing me for all my cases, right? So the sky was kind of the limit as long as I could explain it. So I took more expert depositions at Kilpatrick than I think like most people at the firm, because every single case, we'd hire counter affidavit experts and then experts in something like that. And the kind of the play, the game plan was, you got all your experts, go mediate. And if you can't mediate the case, then go do your experts, right? Because then you're going to go for trial. I just flipped the two. I just said every single time I hire a counter affidavit or counter affiant or an expert, I'm taking those expert depots and then we're going to mediation. Now, whether, because one, it's good for mediation because I got some backing, but I got more reps in expert depots than, I was taking like 1 or 2 a week. I felt like sometimes.
That's crazy. That's a lot.
And cross-examining experts as well. So, I would do it, the plaintiff would do it. And so I was cross-examining experts, doing directs of my own experts. And I just got a ton of reps in the door so that by the time I, left to go do some of these bigger cases at outside counsel, we got a biomechanic, we got an engineer, we've got a neuropsychologist, a neurologist. I'm thinking of one case, we hired 7 experts each on a slip and fall. And we had a neurologist, a neuropsychologist, an engineer, a biomechanical expert, a toxicologist, and one other one that I can't remember. But by then I was like, hey, I've already done this. So I was just wheeling and an economist. We had a life care plan and an economist. So, I was just like, hey, cool. We're going to set all these up over the next like month and we're going to knock them all out. And I was able to do it, fairly well, I think, because I had so many reps doing car wreck cases and that, hey, look, if an expert depot goes south, look, we got mediation coming up anyway. So if it looks like we need to settle the case, we'll settle the case. So I think if you're kind of, especially in the injury world, I would actually recommend, getting with a good plaintiff firm if you want to do that, but also, maybe take a look at the defense.
No, I tell people all the time. So I say, look, like you have 2 options. Go to a premier plaintiff firm where they're going to work the living shit out of you, and you could be probably a little underpaid, to be honest with you, because of the benefit. Benefits are a little bit tougher in those firms, and learn that way. But in the easier way, maybe not easier, but definitely a way that you'll see things in a different light is you go to a defense firm where you do get paid decent, and you get great benefits usually. I don't know about if you're outside counsel, to be honest, but I know in-house you definitely get
good
benefits. Yeah. And you get to work on someone else's dime and hustle constantly and work on cases. And guess what? If you mess up, you just have to resolve the case, right? That's it.
My worst day as a defense lawyer was making a multi-billion-dollar company write a check that was bigger than they wanted to pay. No one's life got ruined, nothing like that. So the stakes were so much lower. Especially when I walk into Kilpatrick and I got, 50 litigation files day one. And they say, okay,
here you go
have it. So it's very much baptism by fire, throw in the deep water, but it's like, the defense lawyers, especially at Kilpatrick, John Kilpatrick, I could praise him all day, but he ran a firm that was just, we are all mentors. When a new guy comes in like me, everyone's going to corral around him and we're going to support him, for the first year or two until he kind of gets on his feet. And then we can kind of, he's got his wings, let him fly coach kind of thing. So it's, it's, from a just a reps perspective, or, go work for State Farm and then you'll try 17 cases a month. You got a drunk guy who kills a pregnant lady. Yeah, we're going to go try that.
What?
So
maybe not go straight for the Death Star, but That's fine. So, I'm trying to wrap this up because I do try to keep it under an hour because I can talk to you all day, man. You're fantastic. If people want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, my cell phone's a North Carolina number. Shoot me a text because I won't answer calls, but it's 704-707-6506. Text me anytime if you want to grab coffee, lunch, a drink, doesn't matter. I just tore my ACL, so I'm getting surgery next week. So I would say let's play some pickleball and stuff, but I'm going to be out of commission for a minute.
How did you tear your ACL?
Tennis.
Really?
Just being a overweight ex-tennis guy, just thinking I still got it. I cut to my left and tore it in half.
Man, I just picked up running because I'm like trying to cut down. And dude, it is the easiest way to realize how mortal you are.
Oh my God, yeah.
You're like, that's me huffing and buffing? Oh no, something's wrong.
It's, growing up playing, I was, I think I got to the top 100 in the country in tennis, in high school and, got to play. So I was playing at a, I would consider a pretty high level.
Yeah.
And I play, an hour of tennis now. And I'm like, how did I do this for 6 hours a day? I mean, obviously I was 15, 16 years old, but I'm like, I'm about to have a heart attack. It's bad, so, but yeah, that's my cell phone. My email is Andrew@Mckinnon-law. So shoot me a call, shoot me an email, whatever you need. And I've got my SOP that's kind of like, it's always moving. But if you need a copy of my SOP, I'll just shoot you a copy of it and then you can take it and run with it how you will. It's something that I've created over the last 2.5 years now. So yeah, if anyone needs it, just give me a shout.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna bother you for that after this. So
for sure.
But I'll put that information in the body as well too, if anyone wants to pull from it. But man, thank you so much for coming on. And man, I think you might be back on again because there's a lot of subjects we can definitely talk about. I think that you have a lot of insight on.
Yeah, man.
Sounds good.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I've been listening to your podcast since the early days. I feel like.
So, oh man.
I feel like this is like kind of me making it a little bit that I'm on, the Bad Law Worst Facts.
So this podcast, we're going to delete. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's fantastic, man. And thank you for being a supporter. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, for sure.
It's weird. Like when people were like, oh, are you Mike? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I listen to your podcast. I'm like, really? I just thought I talk to myself sometimes, but it's okay. No, I'm just kidding. But all right, we'll talk soon. All right.
All right, man. Take care.